Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another Conversations on Retail. My name is Mike Graen, and we're here to talk about on-shelf availability as part of Conversations on Retail and the University of Arkansas Supply Chain Department. We're really excited to talk to Len today. He is a supply chain practitioner and recently did a blog on the end of reactive retail, which was a fascinating topic. But before we get into that, Len, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Mike, thanks so much for having me. Hi, everybody. My name is Len Wierzbicki. My role is the head of strategy for a company called Badger Technologies. We manufacture, produce, and leverage mobile autonomous robots to help retailers with challenges as it relates to on-shelf availability, inventory management, pricing discrepancies. I've got over 30 years experience working primarily for retailers and consumer products, and that experience is split pretty much right down the middle. I spent 15 plus years as a consultant and 15 plus years as a practitioner. So I've seen it from both sides of the spectrum. So that's a little bit about me. And again, I'm excited to be here. Thanks.
It means you've got 30 years in the industry. We should have all the problems solved by now, Len. I mean, come on, what's up?
New problems, new days.
Well, speaking of problems, I have gotten out of the habit of asking this question, but I really, really like it because we take off our business hat and we put it aside for a second. And we said, when it comes to retail, we're not only business people and supply chain professionals and retail technology experts, we're customers. We buy stuff, right? And one of the questions I'd love to ask is, as a customer, I'm sure you've had situation over the last 6 to 12 months where you had this thing that you knew you were going to go into this particular retailer and find, and you got disappointed. You got any stories that you can enlighten us with before we get into the end of reactive retail?
Absolutely. So, like I said, I am a customer and a little bit of a technology based customer. So, when I go shopping, I typically look up inventory online before I go into the store to make sure that they have it. So, the most recent situation where there was an out of stock was even more frustrating because I looked up online to see if they were in stock for a particular item. It was a busy Saturday. Unfortunately, the product was not in stock. I'm sure it was somewhere else within the store, but it wasn't available right where I need it, how I needed it, when I needed it. So that part of it was a little bit frustrating. So I ended up having to find somebody to see if they could find it. They could therefore not find it either. So I ended up leaving the store. So not a great situation, but I understand it happens. We've all kind of been there. In other times, I've ended up substituting the item or just go online on my phone and buy it from somewhere else. So
Interesting.
the trifecta, bother the associate, buy it somewhere else, or just leave the store.
Yeah, and it really depends on what kind of item it is. I was using this example the other day. If it's flour, for example, and they don't have the flour you're looking for, you're probably going to leave the store with flour, right? You'll switch to another brand or a different size, et cetera. But when you get into some of these businesses, like I need this printer cartridge for this printer and they don't have it, there's no switching. There's no option to pick up a different one, or spark plugs for a lawnmower, or whatever the examples happen to be. So the ability to switch, it's amazing to me the number of people who walk up to a shelf, look at it, kind of shake their head no, and they get out their phone. You know what they're doing? They're going online and ordering online. Said, forget it, I'll just have it delivered to my house, which is
Absolutely.
disappointing the customer. By the way, that's something a store manager will never know that happened. There's no way they'll know that happened. It just does. Which I think leads into really well and I was fascinated by the blog that you did on just the title alone, the end of reactive retail. Retail is a very complicated business. Hundreds and thousands of SKUs, employees who are calling in sick, customers who are stealing stuff, employees that are stealing stuff, people are taking stuff and putting stuff in front of other stuff because they decided, oh, I don't want that. They put it back and they don't find where they originally put it. They put it to some other places. But tell us a little bit about reactive retail and what inspired you to write this?
Well, I think in retail, it's inherent, right? From previous times when folks actually react to the live, what's going on, what's in the moment kind of situation. So they're always reacting to the scenario. I mean, the customer is always first, the customer is always right. So they're doing anything and everything to ensure that the customer is happy when they leave the store so that they can come back to the store. So as back office and as support, the goal and the objective is to do everything that you can to enable the store management and the store operating staff to be able to service the customers. They shouldn't be hunting, for inventory during the highest selling periods, whether that's at the beginning of the day, lunchtime when folks come in and shop during lunchtime, or for lack of, better time, after work, the 5 p.m. and beyond time. So, you have folks who are needing the products when they walk into their store first thing in the morning. They want to be in stock, ready to go, and that's why they're shopping early, because no one has picked over it, nobody has moved it. So, if anything that you can do to end that reactive side to make it proactive, I think that's what drives customer satisfaction more than anything else.
Hmm. Do you have an example in the retail space today of what a reactive retail would look like?
Yeah, I mean, reactive retail right now is reacting to out of stocks, reacting to pricing issues. So a customer goes to the register thinking that it costs $9.99 and it rings up for $10.99, for example. They get irritated that they're actually paying more than what it was listed for. And really, that is a reaction to a pricing change that may have happened in today's world, gets pushed down from corporate into their point of sale system. But from an execution standpoint, the shopping experience, the price tag needs to match what's in the system. Other than that, it will cause such pain and consternation from a shopper's perspective, myself included, to think that, okay, I was going to get this for $9.99, but it was listed as $10.99. And then the other component of it is mismatched, or mismerchandised items, where tags say it's supposed to be one thing and they think it's a particular price, and they just grab the item because based upon different sizes, shapes, colors, there may be different pricing, but in fact it's mismerchandised. So you have the wrong product in the wrong location, which causes issues.
Interesting. So to put it bluntly, you don't want to have the customer the one that has to ask you, why is this the case, before you realize you have a problem, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the customer ultimately is your last auditor, if you will, right? That's usually where you hear most of the feedback is directly from the customer themselves.
Yeah, I will not share the retailer because that will probably get me in trouble, but I do know of a retailer that literally would have their employees go down the aisle and scan out of stocks and check pricing, et cetera. And they decided that that was really, really expensive labor to put in against that. And so they saw their online picking in store, or BOPIS, buy online, pick up in store, really starting to take off. And they go, why don't we just let the people who pick for the customers give us an indication when we have a out of stock or a pricing problem? And it made sense financially, because why spend two times people doing that versus just have the one person do it? But when you think about it, what you're saying is a customer has decided to buy something, ordered it, paid for it, only for the picker in store to find out we don't have it, so I get to disappoint them. Do you really want your customer kind of finding out and telling you your stuff is broken? Probably not.
Right.
But people make different decisions based upon. My favorite saying is the problem with reward systems is they work, and if you're rewarded on labor, that's probably what's going to happen. So that's a real good example of getting your customers to not find your inefficiencies or your errors. You want to proactively catch them ahead of time. You also shared in the blog, retailers, and I'll read this quote here because you did a great job of communicating this. Retailers who wait for problems to surface are falling behind those who've solved them in real time. What did you mean by that? I think I know what you meant, but give us an example or some data that kind of supports that point of view.
Yeah, I mean, from that perspective, again, it's really about what the customer is doing and how they're reacting to it. And there are studies that are out there. Nielsen IQ, for example, reported out that out of stocks cost retailers about $1 trillion annually, across the globe. So there is the opportunity that they could have purchased something, but due to an out of stock situation, they're not recognizing the retail. Another study that showed from that IHL group, they're estimating that pricing errors, like we talked about before, alone cost about $14 billion in North America.
Wow.
So all of these different issues and opportunities, no systems truly catch it, if you will, because they're transactional in nature. So you have to be in front of it. You want to be proactive, not reactive, as it relates to out of stock situations, pricing errors, mismerchandised items. You got to be in front of it.
Hmm. Well, and you quoted an interesting Bain research statistic in your blog. It was about sharing us a little bit about that. Tell us, audience, what that Bain research provided as well.
Yeah, it's about loyalty. I mean, Bing went into and I try to identify how are those who are more loyal to their customers, how are they outperforming their peers? And the results in their report showed that from a loyalty perspective, that they see trip frequency increase by about 2x because time is valuable. If people know and trust that you have their best interests in mind, they're going to continue to come into your store. And if anybody who's ever worked in retail, they know foot traffic means everything. It's not only just the purchasing component of it, but there's also the impulse buys that go along with it, that they know you as a customer that you are targeted for. So you know what to expect when you go in there and they're delivering.
Hmm. Interesting. So to me, there's an audit function and there's a fixing function, right? How did so in most retailers today, to me, sometimes those are the same role. Hey, do the audit and fix it if you see problems. And sometimes there's an audit function and they hand that over to somebody else to fix it. How do you see in-store conditions being monitored today? Are there better options than the old way of scanning every single item on some kind of a routine cadence?
Yeah, I think there are always better options to it. But to your point, right now, the way it's done is manual, right? Because they're basically store managers are pushing their employees and their associates to do more in the span of a day, right? But the customers typically drive it. And there's usually an interruption as it relates to it because the customer's first. So, what is it that you can do to service the customer? So, sometimes those associates go away to try to find inventory. They're walking them through the stores to find the things that they're looking for. They hand off to other associates as they walk through it. But more importantly, if there's no customers in there, they're manually checking shelf conditions. RIS News reports that 70% of retailers are still relying on manual audits to assess shelf conditions, but there are solutions out there. Badger Technologies, for example, we produce manual autonomous robots that leverages computer vision and AI, as well as RFID reading capabilities to patrol the stores, to walk the stores, to identify the situations, and to send those notifications to an operator, to a store manager, to someone to address them immediately, as opposed to waiting for a customer to tell them about a particular situation.
Well, that sounds kind of Star Wars-ish. So break it down for me. So if I'm a retail store owner and I want to make sure I've got in stocks and my correct product is there where it's supposed to be and the pricing's all right, what does a Badger robot do? Is that something that I've got to drive around? And how exactly how do you operationalize something like that?
Yeah, actually, a great question. So, our team actually does a lot of the work for you. In essence, what they do is they come in, they map the store. They get insight and information from you as a retailer to provide what should be in a particular location. Computer vision is no different than human vision. It's just a computer that is seeing the conditions of the store just like you would. And then it uses that information and compares and contrasts against images to what should be expected. In addition to that, these robots have the ability to actually read those barcodes that are sitting on your shelves so that it knows what it should expect in that location. So it uses a lot of technology, it processes it very quickly. The Badger Technology solution does this all on the robot. So it's done in near real time or real time. to do the compare and contrast and to send notifications to the store managers to fix the issue.
So I envision a robot is something you have to drive, or is there something that you guys actually program it where it's an autonomous operation?
It is an autonomous operation. So we lay out the store. When we lay out the store, it's similar to laying out a digital train track, if you will. So it creates the path through the store. And then when the robot goes into action, it follows the path as it was digitally laid out. So we work with the customer to lay out the time of the day when they want it to run. We have customers that do it before any customer step foot in a store, or we have solutions where our robot actually patrols the store for hazardous um, detection capabilities or hazardous situations. So if there's a spill on the floor, or if there's some items that are on the floor that could cause a slip and fall, we'll see it, identify it, stop, send a message to the store manager or the overhead, um, the PR or the PA system, to say there's a cleanup on aisle 5, for example. So it helps protect and keep the store in a clean state.
So I'm a store associate. My job is to scan everything, look for out of stocks, and then fix them. Am I getting put out of work with this Badger robot, or is there still work for me to do? I'm a little worried about my job going away, Lynn.
Sure. No, I understand that completely. And that's not what we try to do. We view ourselves as a digital teammate. So we do the stuff that's considered dull by most store associates. So the robot doesn't directly interact with or interface with the customers. We leave that to the human teammate. What we're trying to find is if there are issues that need to be resolved. So we make the time that they're in the store more valuable, more impactful, and it's an ability to allow for that individual to do more in their 8-10 hour shift, however long that they're there. So we don't replace, we support and we supplement, and we provide more of a prioritized list of activities to go do.
Got it. And so if I'm a store associate, I don't have to do the audit. How do I get these alerts? How do I figure out, because it's running around in a robot? I'm assuming there's a way that I somehow get that information to go, I have 3 out of stocks and 4 price changes at aisle, right? How do I get that?
Yeah, so we have the ability to send these signals through a handheld or through a mobile device. So in today's world, there are folks or employees are have the tools of mobile devices to check on inventory situations, inventory scenarios, um, pricing issues. So we have an app that an associate can leverage. They log in with their credentials, and those pieces of information are sent to them. You can sort based upon aisle and based on type, however you want to do kind of a follow up, if you will. And we also prioritize the list of activities based upon input that the customers give us. So that's the primary way to leverage a mobile app to do it. We also have a portal. And if somebody is very paper based, they have the ability to log onto the portal, print out sheets, and go out into the store. But we recommend that you leverage the mobile app. Kind of keeps you hands free, gives you the ability to interact digitally and in more real time.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So I'm thinking in a grocery store, this would be an incredibly powerful tool for out of stocks, for plugged products or incorrect products in the wrong location, pricing issues. What if I'm in a different part of a business, say apparel, general merchandise, where I can't look at a rack of clothes and tell you, oh, I don't have any smalls, because I don't think your robot's going to be able to do that. You mentioned RFID. Does that RFID data capture give me the ability to read the RFID tags that are on that apparel merchandise?
100%. It absolutely does. So, again, from a patrol standpoint, we lay the tracks out. We walk the store with the robot. We have RFID antennas on the robot itself, and it reads those RFID tags. So, it will get you even deeper detail in terms of SKU level, quantity levels, not just an in stock, out of stock scenario, but how many you have of a particular SKU. I think the world famous example that's used is you could have a display of jeans, for example, that look like it is merchandised impeccably, but the reality of it is they're all, you know, 30 waist and 29 length, as opposed to someone my size that wouldn't fit into it. It looks like it's merchandised great and it looks like you're in stock, but the reality of it is you may not have the SKUs that the customers are looking for. RFID, which is being embraced holistically across a significant number of apparel manufacturers, has been absolutely fantastic in determining availability and actual counts of items within a store.
Hmm. If I'm a retailer, because I'm assuming these decisions were made by retailers, not brand owners, even though the brand owners probably would value that data just as much, if not more, than the retailers. But if I'm a retailer that's kind of interested in exploring this for my particular retail store, who would I contact?
If you're a retailer, I think there is a partnership with your vendors, whether you are going to mandate that or you're going to work with them, because some other retailers are actually driving the need to transition to this RFID capabilities because they see the significant value in having that information available to them real time. So some of these brand folks may already be leveraging RFID tags in their products. So that may be simple. In other ways, they may have to reach out to RFID tagged vendors who produce these to embed them into the ticketing on their merchandise. And it's not intrusive. In fact, you could go into some of the stores that have these tags. You'll see them on the garments themselves, but they don't take up a significant amount of space. They're very tiny, but they're very impactful.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So with one solution, we have something that can verify and alert to pricing discrepancies, tell you when you're out of stock, tell you if something is in the wrong spot, and in some places with RFID, even count and tell you how many you have. So if you're supposed to have 3 on the sales floor, but you don't have any in the sales floor, you've got 3 in the back room, it could alert you that says bring them out because that's
Absolutely.
that,
It's a combination of a multitude of systems, to your point, right? Is it merchandised correctly with the RFID tags? If you walk in, they have manual readers for RFID tags as well. Check the back room. You have your perpetual inventory so that you can do a check, or you can do a more I'll call invasive cycle count to ensure that your available inventory matches with what you have in your perpetual inventory systems, which, oh, by the way, feed your demand and supply planning systems that do all of the mathematics behind it, does the predictive analytics, and again, gets you out of the reactive retail and into the proactive, the anticipatory ability to anticipate what your customers are going to want when they come to your store.
hmm, great point. Yeah, Len, you and I, in all transparency, were with a retailer just last week, and we had a couple of situations where we saw out of stocks. And one of the things that the retailer mentioned is this thing illuminates and makes information available we didn't even know we had. And my favorite quote, it's like a flashlight in a dark room. It allows you to see what's there that was there the whole time. You just didn't know it. In their cases, they said, the system said we had 3, so we assumed we had 3, and we looked on the shelf and they didn't have 3, and we assumed it was in the back room, and you got busy with something else, and guess what? You don't have any. There's none in the store, so you're not going to sell any because you don't have any. There's none in the back room. You wouldn't be able to find them. And the reality is you're probably not going to order it because you think you have 3, and they're pretty expensive items. So you are stuck. It is not a operational issue. It's a supply chain issue because the order on hand amount was wrong. It was overstated, causing you to never be in stock unless somebody took some kind of intervention. So we won't say what retailer it is, but it doesn't matter because I think that'll go for any retailer we're talking about. They all have the same opportunities.
100%. And if you don't have the inventory correct, these systems and these applications that are doing the replenishment algorithms and the buying, it's only as good as the data and the information that they have. So if your replenishment system thinks you have stuff on hand, to your point, it's not going to place replenishment orders to the vendor. As a result, sometimes your sales dip, and therefore an item that should be classified as an A item or a fast moving SKU gets negatively impacted by becoming a C because it's not moving. And the reason is the system thinks that there's stuff on hand. It thinks it's at the point of purchase for it to take place. But the reality of it is none of that's happening, and sales dip, things get marked down, and things get taken off the shelf. So to your point, the consumer products companies or those who are providing the inventory would much rather have that accuracy. So they're getting the replenishment orders so that they're seeing their product fly off the shelves. So knowing that information helps everyone across the broad supply chain for sure.
You mean it's 2025 and we're still saying garbage in, garbage out? I can't believe that. I thought AI was going to fix all that, Len. I didn't think we had to worry about that anymore.
Well, it is both artificial and intelligent at the same time. So
Good point. One more quick question, then I've got a kind of closing thing. You also mentioned in your blog, retail doesn't reward reaction. It rewards anticipation. I thought that was very deep. It was one of those, made me think for a while. But give me some context of what you meant by that.
yeah, it's kind of like the sorry state, right? When a customer comes in and you don't have it, you're sorry that you don't necessarily have it. So for those individuals who try to anticipate what the customer needs, try to anticipate, weekends or holidays that are going to take off, so you have to have merchandise available because the customers are going to come in. You don't have a crystal ball, you don't know how many, you anticipate, but you use history and you leverage, you anticipate, you get in front of it, and then you're able to react to it. Not necessarily in a way that it's reactionary up the supply chain, it's reactionary from places where inventory may reside, or you direct somebody to it, or you can replenish a shelf faster. So it definitely rewards those who are prepared for the instance that's coming, as opposed to reacting to it and saying they're sorry to the customer for disappointing them.
Great perspective. Great perspective. Len, this has been a fascinating discussion. I really appreciate your thoughts. I appreciate you taking your time to put that blog together. It was a very interesting title. And when you double clicked on it, it had a lot of things that I went, yep, that's correct. Well, never thought about that. That makes sense too. So we appreciate you really helping out the industry. The one question that I didn't ask you that I love to ask everybody is there a question that you would have loved for me to ask that I didn't? In other words, is there a closing comment or, hey, I wish you would ask me about this topic here because I really would have liked to expound on that, or any other closing comments that you might have for us?
I appreciate it. I don't necessarily know if there's a question that you hadn't asked. We kind of alluded to a couple of things, but there is this ecosystem, if you will. And it's about how do these different parts and pieces kind of come together to help satisfy the customer. So to the point of how do you become proactive as opposed to reactive? How can you leverage the data that you collect in this system and share it with another application? So how can you take, for example, point of sale system data and use the movement of products through the store? How can you identify the fact that a shelf is out of stock, but it didn't go through the register, which perpetuates a bigger issue in the retail environment, which is shrink, which is theft. So how do you identify those things that have demand, but not necessarily paid for demand? So what kind of security elements can you put in? How do you merchandise appropriately? So again, there is a multitude of challenges. As we mentioned before, there's not enough time in a day to attack all of these things. So how are you leveraging the ecosystem of solutions and systems to come together to help the store operate effectively and efficiently?
Love that. Love that. Great comment. Great closing comment as well. Len, thank you very much on behalf of the Conversations on Retail and the University of Arkansas Supply Chain. Really do appreciate your time. Terrific job kind of educating us about this topic. Very, very impressive. Appreciate it very much.
Always a pleasure to spend some time with you, Mike. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Take care, Len.